All right, we are
Mhm.
live.
Hello, everybody.
Do-do-do-do-do. Here we are. Here we are. Everyone, welcome. As always, we start off with a little bit of a pause to give people some time to get in, get the notifications. Hopefully, people have subscribed. And on YouTube, when you subscribe, you also have to click the notifications for that channel so that it actually notifies you. It's not just good enough to subscribe. You have to subscribe and then say notify me when they do something. So um, if you're watching this on a recording and wondering why do I keep missing all of the notifications, that's probably the reason why. So check that out. Um, but we're gonna get started soon. We've got a few topics today, Snuffy, don't we?
Well, we have plenty.
We have plenty. We were talking
We
before
have
we
plenty.
started. We were like, all right, how much time do we have today? Because we have a lot to get through. We're going to try to hold this to about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, keep it under an hour. We appreciate everybody's time. For those of you that are hanging out with us and know that you don't have all day to play around, you got stuff to do. You got things to do, plants to grow, people to manage or lead, and visions and missions to accomplish. So we can't you can't watch social media all day. So we're going to try to make this as succinct as we can because we do think that this is important, the information that we're sharing today, that we've been sharing over the last few weeks. So um, hang out. We're going to talk about some company updates. There's been some changes, some announcements about some good news for Trella. There's some opportunities for farmers to gain more funding. We're going to talk about that.
Mhm.
And then we're going to definitely make sure that we spend some time talking about the heavy deluge of water that got dropped down across the U.S. over the past 2 or 3 days.
Mm.
It's been
Mhm.
intense. Here for me locally, and where I am, I've seen visually what's going on. Same for you, Snuff. I know you.
Mhm.
So, and then the people, all across the country. What's happening? I mean, I think it was just on the last live we talked about droughts and saying, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe things will change. We'll get a heavy deluge of water. That was just last week. We said that,
Mm.
and now here we are. We got that heavy deluge of water, but how has that actually helped? Is it going to help the droughts, the conditions for farmers, etc.? So we want to make sure that we touch on that definitely. Um, but yeah. Oh, thank you, Rohan. Rain bombs.
Ooh, comment already. Ooh,
Thanks for checking out. Thanks for hanging with us. So we're gonna get into that.
rain bombs.
We're also
That's
gonna
interesting.
yeah,
But
yeah. We're also gonna talk about what can people do if you don't even know. Are you exposed to these types of conditions where you might have heavy rain, heavy flooding? There's also terminology such as surface water, stormwater. That is a little bit different from your typical flooding, which is actually what happened to the majority of the U.S. They had stormwater and surface water issues. So we're going to talk about that and some resources that we have, some free resources, some things that if you want to know how will it impact you, your business, your farm, your livelihood, your home, what can you do? We're going to share some information on that as well. So please stick around. Please stick around. But I wanted to talk about a post that I saw on LinkedIn about raising LED lights. And this is just we're going to touch on this really quickly. Let me share my screen.
when I first saw it, I was like, "Is this like a bridge? Like it looks like one of those bridges over a ravine."
No, not quite. This is
See?
something that's, get rid of my banner here. Like that. Boom. All right. So this is a system that you can purchase if you're growing indoors and you are looking to control the height of your lights. It's kind of a racking system. It's got the ability to be raised up or down. There are a few different types of systems. You can DIY this yourself. I think the gentleman that I saw on LinkedIn actually it might have been a DIY solution. It makes sense. I mean, when you're growing plants indoors, you have to consider the height of the lights above your canopy. And depending on the stage of the plant and how old it is, you might want the lights a little bit closer, a little bit further away, because that affects the intensity of the lights and how it's kind of interacting with the canopy. So this gentleman had a system where he could just hit a button and bring lights up, bring lights down. And I said, wow, wouldn't it be really cool to control the height of the plant versus controlling the height of the light? And that way you could keep the light stationary, control the light of the plant, keep everything kind of at a set vertical distance, and then you could stack them on multiple levels. And that's essentially what we're doing at Trella Technologies with TrellaGro LST. So if you're new to us, my name is Asia. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Trella Technologies. And this is our lovely team member, accomplice, Snuffy
Yeah.
G. And we are working on products and solutions to figure out how can we grow whatever it is we want to grow wherever we want to grow it. And there are lots of different ways to do this. So we are coming up with different products and different solutions, and one of which is TrellaGro LST, which is a system that will automatically train a plant to grow horizontally sideways and hold it at a certain distance. So you don't have to raise and lower your lights. You can keep your lights at one particular elevation and then put them in vertical racks and stack them, one level on top of another. So if you're new to us, check us out at trella.io. Snuffy G can pop that in the
Sure.
comments.
I can do that.
One other thing we wanted to mention, we have our regulation campaign, a regulation crowdfunding campaign. So this is an opportunity to become an investor in Trella Technologies. We do regulation crowdfunding. This is a method that we've been using since 2019. And a lot of other companies, a lot of other startup companies are doing something similar. This is regulated by the SEC. And if you want to become an investor, if you want to actually learn more about the company, have a good understanding of what we've done in the past, find a resource to get updates, this is a great place to do so. So if you go to trella.io and you click the investors button, or a pop-up will come that will take you to this page, you can learn more. But the people at WeFunder have granted us a 2-month extension, which was nice. They told me about it just about 4 or 5 days ago, that they were willing to extend our campaign. So we have 60 more days. So that means that our campaign will be live until October 24th. So check it out. Please, if you have any questions, there's a place to ask questions. There's a place to look for updates. So make sure that you do that and reach out and if you have any other comments, etc. But with that being said, we're always be raising is one of the things that they tell founders and entrepreneurs. You're always looking for capital. You're always looking for ways to kind of push yourself to the next level. And one of the things that we've been able to do, we're really psyched about, is that we were asked to we actually weren't asked, sorry. We got through a process, and we're actually going to be finalists in this program called Level that I'm showing here on the screen. And Level is a group of multiracial women who come together to invest specifically in Black women like myself. And they've done this for several rounds, for a couple of years. And we have made it into the fall session. So we are finalists. We're going to be able to pitch to a group of investors in about November timeframe to get some more investment coming in. So we're really thrilled about that. Here's a little one pager about the program and kind of who they go after, who are the investors. I mean, the investors come from a multitude of backgrounds. They also have a nice network for us to tap into if we not just the financial capital, but it's also the networking capital that will be a huge benefit to us. So we're thrilled to be a part of it. I wanted to give them a shout out and wanted to let anyone out there that's looking to invest in Black women specifically, that this is a great organization that you could join to also, find a way to kind of get your currency flowing in the direction that you want it to be flowing in when it comes to investing in Black women. So check them out. It's levelleaders.com, levelleaders.com. And then when it comes to funding for everyone that's a farmer in the agri-space, with the Inflation Reduction Act, they are setting aside some money for farmers, especially trying to increase the diversity and access to funding for those that seem to have, funding, the least limited amount of access to funding. So that's, poor farmers, people in people of color, tribes, et cetera, HBCUs. They're coming up with grants. So wanted to make sure that anybody following us that's a grower or farmer looking to, to get access to funding yourself, this is another resource that you could tap into to get a grant. Now, grants do take, you can't just ask for a grant. You have to put together your grant proposal and your application. But from what I can see here on this CNN announcement, organizations and groups interested in leading a project for struggling farmers should apply by October 28th. And the funding applications for educational institutions will be open through October 25th. So you've got time. Check out this article. You can also go to the USDA's website, I'm sure, and find some information about how you can apply to get a grant to get your hands on some of this funding.
I would think they would extend it. I mean, number one, this was just first announced. They haven't even told us the criteria either in their own words about who can apply. What does it do? Is it for indoor farming, outdoor farming, any type of criteria? But yet you need to apply by October 28th.
Yeah. I mean, grant applications are not for the faint of heart. Trust me.
No, and especially you don't even know the criteria yet.
Right. So, but you do. I mean, if you need the capital and you have the resources to do the grant application, put something together, put it out there, and see what comes to you.
This is good news, though.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Oh, before you do that, don't forget about South by Southwest. We forgot to add that too.
That's over. Yeah, that ended on Sunday.
Oh, they did. Oh, my bad.
It's all good. Yeah, we had everybody. So we applied to present at South by Southwest. It was an opportunity that we had back in 2020. We actually were chosen to pitch at South by Southwest in 2020, but as everyone knows, a lot of things got canceled, and that was one of them. So we are applying to present, not pitch, but to present at South by Southwest, and the voting ended on Sunday. So for those of you that voted, I got a few messages in the DMs and comments. Thank you very much to each and every one of you that voted and then took the extra step to share. I really appreciate that. So if we're, for you, taking away that, go there. All right, let's get into it. So we wanted to talk about the recent heavy flooding, the deluge of water.
More than 17 million.
My apologies, thumb got in the way. The deluge of water that hit the U.S. Wanted to just show a really quick clip of this gentleman explaining specifically what happened in Dallas, but also wanted to mention that this storm moved from the southwest all the way across to the East Coast, causing issues not just in the South and Southwest, but even here in Massachusetts and in Providence, there were some issues. So we wanted to specifically talk about what happened, how does it impact businesses, and then also what can you do to figure out if it's going to potentially impact you. I think there's some things that people don't consider when they look at stuff like this. They feel like they might just have to be a victim. There's not much that you can do when it starts raining this way, but that's not necessarily true. There are things that we can do to protect ourselves, and we're going to get into that shortly, so stick around. But let me just show this clip just a minute or so.
On alert for flooding into the night with the system now on the move. In Dallas-Fort Worth, more than 9 inches in 24 hours, the highest total in 90 years. And outside Dallas, one area reporting 15 inches of rain. The high water rescues to get to families and drivers stranded all day today. The rain falling so heavily and so quickly. Drivers caught by surprise near downtown Dallas. These images from Interstate 30. Dramatic rescues from flooded underpasses, firefighters plunging into neck-high waters, pulling drivers from their submerged vehicles. Elsewhere, the rushing water carrying cars away and simply dumping them. Cars piled up, a truck teetering off the wall. Neighborhood streets turned to rivers, flooding homes, rescue teams helping families make the dangerous journey out. Tonight, this flood threat is now pushing east, multiple states facing flood watches and alerts at this hour. So Ginger Z is standing by on that. But first, ABC's Will Call.
So yeah, we wanted to just show that little clip for a couple of reasons. One, it shows some visuals for people to understand what does it look like when these areas, when you have this mass flooding. Is you could look at the water and you could see one, it's high, but two, it's dirty, it's contaminated. Yeah. It smells horrible. So for those of you that might be new to me, I have a really extensive background over 17 years in the natural catastrophe risk engineering space. I've worked for some of the top insurance companies, helping to actually write and create their engineering guidelines to find out how could they protect their assets, the insurance company's assets, which means their clients' assets. And we were at locations that were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases $4 billion or more. So they have resources and engineers that go out specifically just to figure out what can you do to protect the business from floods, hurricanes, hail, etc. And that's what my background was. I did that for quite some time, developed publications, training materials, trained hundreds of engineers, etc. So I've got a pretty extensive background, and I've actually been in situations where places have flooded after hurricanes, surface water, hail, etc. So I've seen with my own eyes what this stuff looks like. I've smelt with my own nose what this stuff smells like. And I mean, it can make you, after the water recedes, you could lose your lunch sometimes just by it's not a clean washing of water that goes through it. It's everything, all the sewage, all the material, all the oils, the chemicals, everything that we put out into the world gets accumulated in that water and washes through. So this is it definitely leaves behind a lot of remnants, a lot of nastiness. Two, you could see that there were floodings of major highways, major streets. So that means that transportation is significantly impacted. I think one of the things that people forget when they have these storms is the impact to your ability to move, to relocate from one area to another, to get to your home, to get to your business, to get to your loved ones. Your home or your location may not be flooded, but your ability to move somewhere, to get to something, will be significantly impacted. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about with this, Denise? I know we talked about on a couple of lives ago, we talked about why is this happening? Like, why are our streets why are they experiencing this stormwater damage? And so stormwater and surface water means you've got so much rain that's hitting the surface of the ground, and it's running towards storm drains in our storm infrastructure, our sewage infrastructure, but it's overtaking it to the point where it's starting to back up into the streets. So the issue is that when we designed all these systems, sewer systems, et cetera, that was a long time ago, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, 60s, 70s.
Yeah. And it depends on your geographic location. I mean, I've been to Dallas, Texas, and the streets and the infrastructure in Dallas are newer than the streets and infrastructure here in Boston, Massachusetts. But even so, they weren't designed properly. And I think one of the main things that catches the designers off is that we changed the topography, we changed the landscape. You can design something based on current conditions. So that might be, a couple of complexes, a lot of farmland, maybe a mall. And then 10 years later, you've got 20 complexes, 3 malls, a bunch of parking lots. Where you've changed the surface. You no longer have grass and trees that will suck up and absorb all of that water. You now have water running across asphalt, running into all these and not being kind of pulled down into the groundwater. So it has to be drained somewhere. And if you keep changing the topography, it's called, then you're going to keep seeing different ways that the water flows, how much water will accumulate, et cetera. So, because it was good 10 or 15 years ago does not mean that it's going to be good now. And we really haven't tested a lot of these systems. A lot of these things have been designed based on theory, on calculation. And then when we get the real world experience, we get to see how does it perform. And we're seeing that our infrastructure is not performing the way that we thought it would. And in some cases, we know that our infrastructure cannot perform the way that we thought it would. And we need to be doing a lot more to fix it. So.
Yeah, thankfully the infrastructure bill has been passed, like I think about a month or two ago, and some of that infrastructure about drainage and everything is included in that. But I mean, again, we talk about this all the time, Asia. Like we never think ahead. We think about, well, what's happening now and how do we fix what's happening after the fact instead of being proactive. We're always reactive. And I think on these lives that we're doing, we're trying to get you aware of how to be proactive instead of reactive. We're trying to give you the tools to make yourself safe and make yourself sustainable in whatever way possible with this changing climate.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to just sit around and, try to recover from it. You can be proactive, as Snuffy G just said. So thank you for that. Here's the next thing I wanted to show, just a map of kind of how big this storm was, in that it impacted several areas. Some areas that, as we've been previously talking about, were experiencing a lot of drought, mega droughts, especially, out west, Nevada, Arizona, California. We talked last week about the Colorado River and how Lake Powell and Lake Mead are being impacted, and that they're going to have to start. They actually are increasing the water restrictions. They're moving things up to another tier in regards to how they're going to be controlling the water. I also saw, just as a side note, I don't know if you saw this. There's been a couple of Hollywood stars that are getting fined for overuse of water.
Good.
I knew you
Were
would.
they
Hear that
were
when I
they
read-
washing their cars? Their little like Range Rovers? Were they washing their cars? Because that drives me crazy.
Their excuse, because they had excuses, their lawyers
Of
came
course.
back and said that, I've got lots of trees and pines and things that I need to, to keep alive on your property. And I'm like, trees have deep root systems. You don't need to be watering the trees. I think you want your landscape to look a certain way. So you're watering your little grass, because that does not have a deep root system. And if you leave it for a couple of days, you're going to get brown grass. It's just, that's what's going to happen. We have water restrictions here where I am.
Yeah, we do too.
And we have people that are breaking the water restrictions and watering their lawns anyway. And we have some people who aren't.
Yeah, I'm like one incident away of ratting out my neighbor. His his little sprinkler system goes on at like 4 a.m, and we're not supposed to use our water, any type of water. We can only water our lawn or our plants or whatever on trash day once a week. Now, I don't know what the hell he's doing, but I have to read up on whether or not he's allowed to do it. But it goes off every morning at 4 a.m. And I'm just like, it makes it hurts me. We canceled our landscaper because we have no grass to mow, and they're losing money too. So when we say everything's connected, yeah, people's livelihoods are being impacted by this too. People who own landscaping companies can't come and mow lawns that don't exist anymore because it's basically hay at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, our grass is completely brown.
Yeah.
And it's, I think that you need to change the way that you design your landscaping to be considerate of the fact that you shouldn't be watering it every day. But so there's some water restrictions that people are not, abiding by. But, some people might look at the storm that just came through and they're like, oh, sweet relief.
Yeah.
That's true. But it's not to the point where it's going to change water restrictions in the mega drought. And I wanted to share, I mean, I'm not just saying this because, I think so. There's actual, statements being made that this is not enough. And why is it not enough? Right here, you can see it says the rains in South and Southwest won't bust the long-term climate change-driven mega drought in the region, but are enough to cause some short-term drought relief. Unfortunately, they're also causing flash flooding as the dry desert soils are unable to absorb high rainfall rates. And then I also found this from the USGS. Why doesn't a drought end when it rains? Which, other people might be thinking that we're in a better condition now and the droughts are over. But this little blurb here gives a really great example. It says thunderstorms often produce large amounts of precipitation in a very short time. So most of the rain will run off into drainage channels and streams rather than soak into the ground, which would help with the water table. It also says a single soaking rain will provide lasting relief from drought conditions, but multiple such rain over several months might be required to break a drought and return conditions to within their normal range. I think even above it says something like, when you take medicine, you don't just take it once, you need to take it multiple times. And with, surface water and stormwater issues, that's all water that's just being accumulated, moving fast, and going right down the storm, into the sewage system, not really helping the terrain and the plants and then in the agriculture the way that we really need it to. Does it help? Yes, but it's not going to solve. We're not, now headed back in a different direction. It's not going to solve the problem. Yeah. So I wanted to point that out. Then from a local perspective, this is something that happened here where I live in Massachusetts. I'm close to a region called Cape Cod. Cape Cod is like a little island that comes off of the bottom of Massachusetts. If you ever picture the state of Massachusetts, it has like this little like thing that looks like an arm.
Stop showing off your guns.
Oh, stop it. It has like a little arm. So that is called Cape Cod. And there are only two bridges to get on to Cape Cod, the Bourne Bridge and the Sagamore Bridge. I think we saw that there are like maybe year round the population fluctuates. It's a vacation area. So you get more people here during this time, like August, September. It's pretty heavy. It'll start to die down in the winter for sure. But you got hundreds of thousands of people coming back and forth across these bridges. But the thing about the bridges, the Sagamore Bridge, the Bourne Bridge, they are both emergency evacuation routes. If there's a hurricane, a tropical storm, the only way to get out off of the Cape, and the Cape is exposed to hurricanes, it's in a hurricane region, it's in a high wind prone area. The only way to get off of the Cape is to go over one of these two bridges. And there's only 2 lanes. And you can actually see, well, going both ways. So there's only 2 lanes to get off and over the Bourne, only 2 lanes to get off over the Sagamore. And you can see this video here that I wanted to just play very quickly of one of our bridges. This is the Sagamore during the heavy rain that we experienced. Oh, lost my glasses. This is the Sagamore during the heavy rain that we experienced a couple days ago. And it's flooded on one side. There was some mudslides and things that kind of, changed the topography around that area. And you could see that people are at a standstill. You've got some cop cars blocking people from coming back over. This is an emergency evacuation route.
Yeah.
An emergency evacuation route. And if you rely on it, so if there's a storm, hurricane, you have bigger interruption where both sides are completely blocked. No one can get on or off. I'm no longer on the Cape, but I still worry about those that are my family, my friends that still remain on the Cape. And I would say to them, as I'll say to everybody else, if we ever have a condition where we're being asked to evacuate, don't wait at all. Like, leave immediately, because the evacuation routes that we have already shown us that they are susceptible to flooding. You might not be able to make it off the Cape. This is just a little test, a little hint. So for those of us that are watching and paying attention, this rings alarm bells for me. This was just, a couple of days of rain. What happens when we actually have a significant tropical storm that brings, a much bigger system moving through the area, and everybody is trying to get off? This was just, regular, people day to day trying to get back and forth across the Cape. But imagine all 200 or 300,000 people trying to leave the Cape, and on 4 lanes total, 4 lanes to get yourself off. And now one of them's flooded, or both of them are flooded. Catastrophe. So we need to be aware, I think, of our surroundings. We need to be aware of our exposure, not just, your home, but also your business. And there are ways to do that. As I mentioned before, the Fortune 500 companies, people that have that consider themselves to have a lot of value, they have resources and engineers in place that will let them know which of their locations will be exposed, how much, how bad, how long, because the insurance companies want to know that. If they're going to underwrite it, they want to know how bad, how long. So they have engineers that go out and do this stuff. So I did that in my past life. But as times are changing, as the environment is changing, I'm being called to go back in that direction, to share this information and share, my education and my training with everyone, because the information that I was trained and that I learned was incredibly valuable, but it's incredibly valuable to everyone. And I think, Denise, we were talking about, a saying that, environmental justice is social justice.
Yeah.
So when these types of things occur, it's the people with the least amount of access to resources, capital, help, support that are going to be the most significantly impacted. I mean, we were talking, what were you saying, Snuffy, about?
Yeah, we're talking about a huge population, especially in Las Vegas, where the unhoused, where unhoused people are living in storm drainage overflow tunnels and things. And so when something like this happens, and all that overflow goes down to these tunnels, it washes away whatever little homes that they have, and numerous people live down there, like hundreds of people live down there. So when we were listening to the Dallas one, saying they had one fatality, thankfully it was just one, but that's only the ones that are reported on. There was probably hundreds of people who are now displaced again and don't have a place to go, especially in the Las Vegas area, where there's a huge unhoused population living in those underground tunnels.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I can recall a story that I'll share really quickly when I was in Galveston, Texas during Hurricane Ike. And I went down to assess damage. This is probably 2 weeks after the hurricane came through, but it still looked a mess. On my way from Houston to Galveston, I remember driving down the highway and seeing large boats, yacht-sized boats, beached on the side of the highway because they had been washed ashore and brought into the mainland. And I was still maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes away from the shore. But as I got closer into Galveston, I had to go to the university. So I drove through one area that was more of a lower income area, and the houses were destroyed, lifted, moved. These are like 1-story houses, 2-story houses. I remember pulling my car over, and I saw off to my right a gentleman, African American gentleman, just looking at his lot of land and just with this face of complete loss. What do you do? What do you
Yeah.
do? And I remember just kind of saying to myself, because I was taking pictures, because I do a lot of training, so I needed a lot of pictures to show people kind of what happens with damage. And I remember saying, I'm not taking pictures of this. He's mourning right now. I need to give him his privacy. And I drove off. But then I remember driving into the nice part of town. You go through kind of like the commercial area with all the stores and the shops, and then I got to a certain point driving along the beach, along the main road along the beach, and for some reason there's a cop there stopping people from going any further. And
Ugh.
I was new to the area, so I didn't really know what was on the other side of this stop. I was just looking for pictures and looking at damage. And I remember I got stopped and I said, I'm with, an insurance company. I have a thing on the side of my car. I have a badge. I have all this stuff they give me so that I could get access into areas that other people can't get into. But I remember when I got past the cop, I drove in, and then that's when you saw, the bigger homes, more luxurious, most of which were built on stilts. They were elevated up on columns because they had been designed with the understanding that there was a flood and coastal flooding in the area. Whereas the place that I just left, all those homes were right on the foundation, right on ground. None of them were elevated. So all those homes got washed away, while the homes that are maybe about 3 or 5 miles away were designed properly and elevated up with hurricane shutters, and everyone was evacuated. But there was a cop standing there protecting that area. There was no cop to protect that man that I could have just walked up on that dude. There was no one there. So in situations such as these, as we've seen in the past, different classes, different income levels, different people get treated differently when it comes to rescue efforts. So don't rely on your insurance company. Don't rely on, the local government to come and help you. I hate to say it that way, but you have to be prepared. You have to understand what are you potentially dealing with. And it may not be as catastrophic as I'm saying, but you still should know. It could be worse. You still should know. The first thing is being aware of what the condition is. So we have this climate risk report that we do for our clients that will give them kind of the first step in this journey of trying to protect themselves, is figuring out what's my exposure to different types of natural catastrophes. So we have here a hail report wind, flood, and we can do other things, etc. But for this particular location, we did hail, wind, and flood. We also provide them with an exposure rating. It's a numerical number that's based on some proprietary information that we have. In my experience as a natural catastrophe risk engineer, I've created systems like this for commercial property carriers before. So I'm creating a system that can be used for everyone. And depending on the rating, the number, you could either be low, which means you might be exposed, but it's not that big of a deal. You could be moderate, which means you have a little bit more of an exposure that you should keep your eye on. Or you could have an exposure that's high, that's significant. And that's something that means that you need to be doing something. You need to be proactive. You need to figure out what is it that you can do. So when we get to that point of understanding what are our exposures, the next step is, what do you do? So we also look at it a little bit deeper and we go, okay, let's look at this particular location. In this example, we renamed it to ABC Farms, as an actual client of ours, but we wanted to protect their name. So ABC Farms, this is their flood map. This is the blue area is the flood zone that goes through their flood. The orange area is the layout of the land of the property there. And you can see that they've got not all of the area exposed, but they have some. So for them, it was trying to get an understanding of where should they place certain types of crops. They were looking at doing some additional building. Where should they put these new structures? And we were trying to help them figure out where to place those types of, those important items. You don't want to place them close to or within the flood. We also, based on the property value, we can find out if there is a flood, how much loss will there be from a financial perspective. So if you're, an owner or an investor and you've invested in a farm or invested in some sort of some sort of a venture, and you want to know the financial impact, we can provide that with you. We can provide that information to you as well. We also give business interruption estimates. Business interruption means how long will you be down for before you can go back to 100% operation. So that depends on the hazard. It depends on the situation. We have the capacity, the knowledge, the education to figure that out for you as well, to let you know, all right, what's the worst case scenario? Because in some cases it might be tolerable, but in some cases it may not be. But you need to know. So we created this report. If you're interested in having one of these reports done for your facility, please check us out at Trella.io. You can see, the thing scrolling across the bottom of the screen. First thing we would want to do is actually just jump on a call real quick for 20 minutes, find out more about your facility. Does this approach make sense for you? If it does, let's move forward. So first step is to go to Trella.io and schedule a free consultation. You'll see our consultation page there and a link to schedule that free call. And then you can get your climate risk report. And then on another note, if you're not quite ready for this, we do have some resources that we're going to be sharing. Definitely make sure that you go to our newsletter on Trella.io. I'm just going to jump on the website real quick, show people where things are. So you can see at the very top, there's a banner that says schedule your free 20-minute consultation. We also have, some links to get you right to it right there, etc. But if you want to just simply join the newsletter, stay up to date on what it is that we're doing. Here's our pop-up for becoming an investor. We talked about that. If you missed it, that's been extended. But if you wanted to just join our newsletter, you can scroll down to newsletter sign up right here and stay up to date on what it is that we're doing. We're going to be dropping some additional resources that will help people identify what is my exposure, what do I need to look for, and what can I do on my own just to start that understanding, that educational process. It'll be 100% free. So make sure that you sign up for the newsletter so that you can get an update when that thing drops. It'll probably be out in the next couple of weeks. I'm putting it together with myself and a couple of other individuals. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. And I believe that is all we have for today. Denise, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Look at us, 40 minutes. We stayed on time. So thank you, everyone. For those of you that stuck around to the end, again, this will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so you can check out our recording there. We're going to put some more notes and some timestamps in here so you can jump around, come back and reference things that you might need to reference. And definitely make sure that you come back next week Next Wednesday, we'll be live again, noon EST. Subscribe, get that notification. And thanks again, everybody. Matt Peace, Matt Love. Learn up, get some education. There's lots of free resources out there, and we're here to help you if you need, a point in the right direction. So we appreciate your time, everyone. Take care.
Bye, guys.